Doreen Granpeesheh is the
Dr. Doreen is an expert in autism.
Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is a visionary in the field of autism. Now you can ask her questions on Ask Dr. Doreen.
Okay, so maybe we should go back to Anna's question. Okay, what are some factors that indicate more on the intellectual disability versus autism? Because this is the big question that we all want to know too.
Yeah.
Because there are times, I remember one of the first questions that I asked was, you know, how do I know, is it autism or is it MR was the term that they used at the time. Now we say intellectual disability. How will I know, you know, what those things are? And I learned gradually over the years that there are some kids who have a dual diagnosis of both of those things.
Of course.
But it is not the majority.
No, it's not. And when I started in this field, which would be like, 40 somewhat years ago, there was a misunderstanding, and actually it was in the diagnostic manual even, that something like 80% of children with autism have mental retardation, MR, which is now called intellectual disability. And I was always kind of frustrated by that because the way that you measure MR or ID is through an IQ test, right? So typical IQ, most of us have an IQ of 100. And the way that is determined is we do a bunch of activities on a test. So like the test will ask you some, say 5 numbers forwards, repeat, they'll test your memory, say these numbers backwards, put these objects in the sequence they're supposed to be, whatever. There's like a series of activities, produce this like a matrix or things like that. And then based on each of those sections, you get a score, and then all of those are, the total of that is the measurement of your mental age. And the way, so then that'll be a specific score, and then they divide that by your chronological age, which is your normal age, and then they multiply that by 100. And so if your mental age and your chronological age are the same, then the quotient becomes 1, right? Multiplied by 100, your IQ is 100. And that's average IQ, intelligence quotient IQ. But there's a standard deviation, which means most people, when you do a normal curve of the population, are 15 points below or after that. So somewhere most of us, 98% of us, or even higher than that, we're in the range of 85 to 115 IQ, okay? Now, why is there something wrong with that when it comes to autism? The reason is that those tests are loaded with verbal questions and instructions. So if I am to take, let's say if I come to you and I say, put these, like for children, like some of the tests, IQ tests for children, and tests, by the way, vary. There's a test that's only for 2 to 6. There's a test that's for younger than 2. There's a test that's 6 to 16, and so on and so forth. And tests are different age ranges. But the instructions are always verbal, right? Do this, put this over there, and do so on. Or what is this? They require verbal ability. So there's an immediate confound, which is that if you have a delay in language, then you shouldn't be tested this way, because your language ability is now interfering with your core intelligence, or our ability to see your core intelligence and to measure it, right? So it isn't fair how we're measuring your core intelligence. So for many, many years, I was just always fighting that and saying, no, this is not valid. This cannot be valid. Like, this is a brilliant child. Look at his memory. It's crazy. It's amazing what he's able to do, blah, blah, blah. But just because he doesn't have language, we're giving him a lower IQ. And so I would always recommend to parents who have children whose language is delayed to use tests of intelligence that are for deaf children. They're nonverbal tests of intelligence, and they're much more accurate. And I have had scenarios where a child would come in with an IQ of, let's say, 70, and then we would give the child an IQ test of a nonverbal type, and then all of a sudden their IQ was showing up as 90, And that always gave me a thrill because I'd be like, see, that's their actual intelligence that we're working with. Now, what is the difference? The difference is a lot. Like there are certain behaviors with children with autism that just have absolutely nothing to do with IQ, and they're much more on the sensory area. This is what we were talking about. So there are children who, you know, a lot of the self-stimulatory behaviors are very specific to autism and don't really have much to do with intellectual disability. Intellectual disability really is just more about the ability to learn and model, imitate, and so on. And when you have a child who has intellectual disability, you see that. They're not hyper. Most of the time, children with ID are very, much more lethargic and calm, and they're not interacting with their environment. You'll see children with autism interacting with their environment, maybe not the way you want them to interact with their environment, but they're very active with their toys or with their own things. And in fact, you can't even get them to calm down for a moment. So the symptoms are quite different. And if you look up, you can even look up kind of online, say DSM symptoms of autism, DSM-5 symptoms of autism, symptoms of intellectual disability, and then you will see that they're quite a different group of symptoms.
Okay.
Don't forget, you can watch Ask Dr. Doreen live every Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. Pacific time. We hope to see you there.